are here with another Jam Sesh, and today is a very special Jam Sesh because it is our first three-person Jam session with my wonderful wife, Dr. Monica, myself, Dr. Matt, and my sister-in-law, Dr. Erica. And today we're going to be talking about something very special because obviously it's important to us, and it is community and the importance of having a solid community as a fundamental part of not only your health and healing, but your life in general. And for me, it's a very passionate thing because I'm a people person. I love to be around people. Monica definitely loves to be around people, but maybe not as much as I do. So for me, I feel like this is just a vital part of who you hang around and who you're around the most is just a huge part of your overall health and vitality. So kick it off to Monica. Why is community so important for people?
When I learned that we are the sum of the 5 people that we hang around most, it was a very, very sobering moment for me as far as like looking around at the people that I was spending the most time with. Like, who was I hanging out with on the weekends? Like, who was I, going to coffee with, or what, or maybe, or who am I texting the most? Like, is that person, do I feel inspired? Do I feel like lit up? Do I feel like a better person because of being around that person? And for me, it wasn't necessarily a yes to all the people that I was around, which is why I say it was a sobering moment. And so for me, I always want to be my best self and I want to live my best life. And so for me, that means surrounding myself with people who also want that.
And back in the day, she was a little bit more hardcore on our friend group in the beginning, cutting them off.
And we're such a balance because he was like, don't cut anyone off. And I'm like, well, I'm so radical that I know what I want. And even if I didn't have it at the moment, I was willing to not be around certain people because I didn't feel that great after being around them. And that's really the meter that as you are taking inventory of your own community is to see how do you feel when you are around them? How do you feel when you leave? How do you feel before you see them are the things to really pay attention to.
And I think anybody that's been in Rev, you guys particularly have imprinted this on me, but it is clearly a vibe here for us. We adjust 10 people at a time. We have these really big community events, and people ask us like, why a lot? And I'm like, healing does not have to be this alone journey that you go on and you cancel out all your friends and it's like this head down, face down. It can be extremely fun. And you said this earlier, Matt, but we have essentially 8 essentials that we have for people. And you brought this one up because we were like, what is healing for us? We have nature and breath and nourishment and all these really lovely ones. And we're sitting in the car and Matt's like, guys, fun. Community and fun. And I'm like, and he's like, I'm like, well, why? And you're like, it is literally the biggest shifter for you. And I really believe that. And everybody coming in here with the same intention of healing, it's a really beautiful thing. And even with our group, it doesn't just happen overnight. Like people think because we're family and friends and have this business together that it's all sunshine and rainbows. And it is a lot of the time, but it's not constant, but we're continuously growing and we're constantly evolving. So it's become easy.
And it really comes down to the energy of who you're hanging around, right? Because you have an electromagnetic field, others have an electromagnetic field, and who you're hanging around, your vibe is your tribe, right? Your tribe is your vibe. So, I mean, there's studies out there that talk about like people that are overweight, if they're hanging around other people that are overweight, really hard for them to start losing weight. But if they start going to the gym, right? Seeing more healthy people, that shifts not only are they working out, but they're around that and they're inspired to be greater. You want more success in life, more success in business, being around people that have done it, right? That is that vibration that you can then tune into as well.
So we're going to go over like 5 qualities that you can begin to enrich your community with. And I'm going to throw it to Erica. She's going to begin. These are going to be just really beautiful things that have benefited us in our own community tremendously. And it's something we, of course, still practice and will always practice. But it's going to benefit anyone's community.
These are essentially what we have come to learn for you guys to share. The first thing that I said was communication, and not just communication, but constant communication. And I think that comes with a level of vulnerability and authenticity that's required, but we communicate about everything. If something's going on in my life, it's not necessarily you did this, I did this, but tell me more about that. I want to hear more, and it becomes a conversation literally about everything. We call it like putting it on the table, like, this is how I feel. How do you feel? And we communicate about it. And I think we shared that because that resistance, if we don't communicate it, just further separates us. And then all of a sudden I'm off into the next part of my day and I'm carrying that same energy because the heaviness is on my chest always.
Yes, I was reading a Joe Dispenza book, which if you have never followed him or read his books, highly, highly recommended. But he was basically saying, like, when you're not communicating with somebody, which is our culture, like we just kind of shove things under the rug. We hope it goes away when in actuality it gets worse and things kind of build on top of it, like these layers. Erica and I were talking a couple weeks ago about those layers because we were working through something and we always will be. But basically, like when you are, everything's energy. So if there's something tension between Erica and I, there's this like ball of tension that's actually separating us. And when we are communicating and talking and hanging out, it can't free flow between us. It actually has to work around. So it's like inefficient and it's always felt. So it's always there. So the way to really address it is to communicate. But what about if people are really defensive when you are communicating? That's the thing. I think Erica's really, really good at this, is that she isn't defensive and she's super like open and curious. And I think those two qualities are what kind of mitigate that defensive energy of like, but I did this because of this. But I was just gonna say, like, what would you guys say about like how do we communicate if people are defensive, or maybe if you have felt defensive before, like how do you kind of work through that?
I mean, through time and trial and error, how to communicate with different people in the world. But my thought process is, though, in thinking of it this way, and people have to kind of just set their intentions of what they're trying to say, but like communication versus non-communication. I was raised by a Cuban mother, and the Cuban family, like something's wrong, we talk about it, right? So it was ingrained in me, and I have found that it is just so much easier to begin moving through those things if we actually do start communicating, because as you said with Joe Dispenza.
He's so good at it.
Well, you know, it's just how I was ingrained, and also I've gotten better at understanding, like, hey, sometimes people need space as well, but when it comes to your community, why this is important, because as she just said, Monica just said, the other person is going to feel it. You're going to feel if Julie is upset with you when she walks in the room because she's not telling you something. And by opening up those lines of communication, you're able to heal through those things so much more efficiently than sweeping it under the rug and maybe never talking about it, or maybe talk about it 6 months later. We could have healed that in no time if we would have just communicated better.
And I think having the intention when you are communicating, it's like where you're going versus maybe what you don't have. And I think I grew up not communicating at all, and being married to Matt has like blasted me open to be like an incredible communicator. Like this is my standard, my norm now, and I'm super, super grateful for it. And I will never go back to not communicating, because not talking about things feels really just not good and heavy and closed off, and it just isn't, I don't feel close to people because of it. But communicating is really important. I think when you are communicating, like if there's something going on between Eric and I, is that we're communicating to move through something, to be in a higher place together, like individually, but also collectively as like friends, sisters, family, all the things. So I think having that in your mind's eye when you are communicating, like what's the intention and where are you going, is really important.
And like curiosity for me, if something shows up in my life, especially with like us, I'm like, this doesn't happen very often where there's turbulence in my field. I immediately put on my curiosity hat, because I know that it's not just you, it's not just me. I'm like, what is going on? And it is like this de-armoring of the whole situation by just being curious and asking questions first, and really coming from that place within your heart, I think too. But communication is key.
And it's also like intended for both of us to grow. I really believe that. If you like believe that everything is for you, then this little riff is for me to grow, for her to grow, so we can grow together as well.
It's all part of it. So number two, the second thing is radical transparency
and honesty. And I gotta say, guys, like that one, I say that jokingly and lightly, but that comes with an extreme level of authenticity. And I think the higher you grow in your authenticity, the more you kind of demand and require that from the people around you. And I can share a really small example, but Matt, you said this to me before. It's like if we have a really surface level conversation, it might be fine. But if there is other stuff going on under that, it almost, like we said, keeps layering on, where whenever I leave a place, I feel absolutely lit up and inspired whenever I have communed with other people in a way that feels thriving to me. And that has to come with me setting intentions, knowing who I am, speaking my truth. And I think that I've sat down with a lot of people who are like, well, I'm growing and evolving, and my partner's not. They're not radically transparent or whatever it is. And I tell them, I say, well, you know what you can do? You can either look back as you're walking and pull them along and use all this energy, or you can continue walking and being authentic, being radically transparent when these things come up. And by entanglement, by energy, that person has a choice to make. They will either start following you or radically drop off as well with their own transparency.
And I've talked to a lot of people, and this is how I used to feel too. It's like, okay, well, I'm in groups and I actually feel really drained when I'm around people, so I just kind of want to be by myself. And I'm like, hold on a second. I was that person as well, and that simply means you're not being authentic in how you're showing up. Because if you're not being authentic in how you're showing up, you're just giving your power away, and you're kind of like sinking like smaller and smaller, so that when you leave, you actually need to retreat to recharge because you haven't fully showed up as yourself. So for me, my journey has been to fully be who I am in all situations and equations, and the result of that is I feel like I'm thriving. Like I feel like I'm alive, I feel empowered, I feel lit up, I feel like I fully expressed who I am. And also the repercussion of that, the positive one, is that everyone feels lit up because of it, and permission to do the same, which is really powerful.
I mean, being around people that you can be authentic with is one of the greatest gifts in this world, because we've all had relationships. I can think of like men specifically, like, and I know women have this as well, but like you meet a buddy, you see someone and like, hey, how are you? Good, how are you? And you guys just go have a drink or something and nothing really is said. It's fine, it's fun, but there's no like growth from there. There's nothing more than just that superficial conversation. But when you're with someone and they can say, how are you doing? It's like, oh man, actually, like it's been a challenging time at work or with my son or a daughter or coworker, whatever it may be. Like you open up for more growth in that moment. It's not that every conversation has to be so serious, right? But you feel that comfortableness with someone to be able to let them know, hey, I'm working through this, and then you guys can navigate that together. To me, that is energetically just so much more powerful than, hey, how you doing? Good, buddy. Yeah, okay. And then nothing really comes from that.
But I always look to children for this, and this goes to integration, which is so important to us, as you guys all know. But like little children, like let's say like my daughter was with her friend and she's like, I'm sad, I got stung by a bee. Like that is so beautiful, so pure, and just so authentic. And that's just their state of being when they're children. But as we go throughout our life, we have all of these wounds from maybe being bullied, maybe feeling less than at home, and we adopt this personality in these patterns of this is how we show up. And so that's why it's so important to be aware of these patterns and to be wanting to grow, so that they're not creeping up into and blocking this ability to like connect deeper with people and to enrich my life in that way.
If you can't speak your needs clearly, like Lion, how are you ever going to get any of these needs met, especially in a group? Right. I love her transparency. Awesome. The third one?
3.
This one, I hold each other to a high-ass standard, and I hope it's okay that I swear, but hold each other to a high standard, and I think amongst our community at least, that is a given. This comes with accountability. I think you guys are the masters of accountability, because I was always under the persuasion, if you want to go fast, go alone, and I would do that. And what I have seen now is the wave and the ripple effect of holding everybody else, holding a hand out for the people in my life of like, we're in this together and we're walking together, we're moving together. It makes us feel unified in a way of, I got your back. If I see you slipping, if I see some chaos, if I see a really beautiful moment for you, I am going to be here witnessing it.
Well, the saying is what? If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, do it together, right?
Oh, did I not?
You didn't finish that part.
So
you just said the
sorry.
fast
You
part.
didn't say part
you want to go
part B, so say it again.
So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? And so your community is a big aspect of where you are going. So
Hold each other accountable.
Holding each other accountable. So if you are around people that are bettering themselves, you're around people that want more out of life, it's nearly impossible for you to not want to better yourself and do that as well. And it's also too, like, if we're having a bad day, something's not going on, but when I see Erica or Monica or Brian or Lauren or Steffi or one of our people in our core group, they're putting in the work, it's like, oh yeah, I'm held accountable that I have to show up. And there'll be days that we don't show up, and there'll be days that I show up more than Monica or Erica and vice versa. But all of us working together, there's this flow of energy that just keeps the train moving when we're not feeling our best. So holding each other to a high standard, it's like, yes, we hold each other, but it's not like I'm saying, Monica, you have to do this. It's its own internal drive, because the energy and frequency around you is also doing that as well.
And to pair two together is like really expressing like your dreams and your intentions to each other. So that's like being held accountable. Like let's say someone really wants to lose 20 pounds, expressing that's like being completely like transparent and authentic of like, I'm uncomfortable and I don't want to be this way anymore. I want to lose 20 pounds and I'm telling you so you can hold space for me so that I don't fall back to my old patterns, and it helps me to move forward. So I also think that's another piece of like the high standard is like expressing yourself and your wants and dreams. Some people don't want to express themselves because then they're held accountable and they're embarrassed maybe they don't meet that, and that's okay, but it's still your intention, and to put yourself out there is a really beautiful thing.
That's why we have each other, these like blind spots. And I have to share this example because it is so it's so accurate for this. In our group text, we call ourselves the Rev Docs. Yeah,
DAWGS.
We are the Rev Dogs, and we probably adopted that name like a year ago when we moved to this office. But we call ourselves that because in Africa there's a tribe of wild dogs, is what they are. You can look this up for yourselves, but they have one of the highest kill rates based on how they show up as a team together. And what I mean by that, it's not like lions or wolves or hyenas. They have like a 30% kill rate. These dogs have like above a 70 always, and this is how they essentially operate. They see their prey, and they all go after it all at once, all together. And of course there is one leader that will be up in the front and on this thing's tail, and then the rest of the group will kind of be ready in the middle area, and then one person, and I think this is truly the accountability piece, that last person makes sure the rest of the group is always moving at a certain pace or a certain speed. They may be a little bit slower, but that fourth or that like lag person right there is actually the accountability, because when this leader starts to get tired, they will join the middle of the pack. This dog will start to move up into the front of the pack because they've been spending this entire time relaxing, enjoying, and then they go. So this animal that they're chasing down has no shot. Like they will chase them for many, many miles. And at one point that animal is going to eventually be tired. And I think that is kind of symbolic for how we go after any goal, like slow and steady. And it's become extremely fast because we're efficient and we're sitting with our truth with each other.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
All
Number
right.
four?
Number four, we want everyone to win. When you win, I win. When I win, you win. And I think this is an obvious fact, but I think also one of the most challenging things in practicality.
This is not obvious.
It's not
Is it
obvious.
This is not obvious.
Okay, I
to
don't
you
know.
it is.
To
This
you
is
it
like
is.
Erica's nature. But for most people, it's like if you win, that means I didn't win. That's like the I don't know, the piece of the pie. Yeah, like if there's like less than because she got something, and that's actually how I was raised as well. And it was really ugly to see that side of myself because I'm like I don't want to be that way anymore. Like I believe in infinite possibilities for every single person, and like when she wins, I win. So I actually had to retrain my mindset to see it in that way, and that's been a huge shift for me.
That pie thing, it's like there's only a certain amount of success that can be
Yes,
out there, even
yes.
though we know that's not true. That's just the mentality. Maybe it's sports, maybe it's different things growing up, that he got this, so I didn't get this kind of thing. So whatever that reason may be, it's not a healthy energy and a healthy thought process because we live in an infinite world. We live with infinite possibilities. And this is a lesson that I learned several years ago where I had to work with, that whole thinking of like, sometimes we have that deep thought like, hey, I want him or her to do well, but not too well because that might make me look bad, right? And you might have to get really real with yourself because maybe you don't do that. And I don't think actually Erica feels that, but I definitely did back in the day. And I remember being shared, I heard something, I think it was Wayne Dyer, that said something like, when you can be grateful and happy for someone else's successes and wins, the universe is watching that and looking at that, and you actually start attracting more of that into your life. And I remember a mentor of mine and friend, quick story, had something amazing happen to them. And initially I was so happy, but then really tuning in, like a part of me was jealous, a part of me was upset, a part of me was just like, man, I wish that would have happened to me, and almost downing that person. And I realized in that moment, what am I doing? I am causing all this turmoil within myself, blocking my own energy system. So I immediately shifted to like, I am so happy for this person. And it took a long time, but now fast forward several years later, I really try, and not actually try, it's just now natural. Something happens to someone, I am genuinely so freaking happy for that person because one, I know how awesome it is for that person, but two, it's like, I know that's going to come back to me. I just want to be happy for every single person.
But I believe that that feeling of jealousy, whatever you want to call it, resentment, is actually really intended at the same time. So yes, jealousy, resentment, those emotions have a low vibration. We don't want to experience them often or for prolonged periods of time because, again, it's lowering our vibration. The goal of all of this is to increase our vibration so we can fully live our life and express who we're meant to be. But I believe the intention of that is that it was something within you that was also wanting to like fully go for it and to receive something so beautiful as well because you put yourself out there. So I think for the people who are like, oh yeah, I'm happy for everyone, but then they're like, so they're good at that, so I don't need to be. Yeah. Don't do that to yourself because that's limiting your own potential. I believe that we're all meant to fully go for it. And it's going to look different for every single person, but that feeling of jealousy is intended for a reason, and it's your soul pulling you in that direction to something different, but there was something there for you, which
it's showing you blind spots.
Beautiful.
Like,
Yes.
where am I out of alignment? If that's your true goal and you feel jealous as it comes up at the same time, like those don't match vibrationally. Yeah. And I gotta say too, I embody this so well because I believe that energy is energy. And if you can hold a vibration, a frequency, and emotion for 17 seconds, your nervous system literally does not know the difference. Of course, we're all on the same team, so a win for you is a win for me. But more than that, whenever somebody in my life, like you're mentioning, Matt, like they do something really awesome, I will start, this was the beginning, but I'd be like, wow, I feel really good for them. And then I'd let myself feel it more. I feel really good for them. And I'm like, I almost feel like this happened to me.
You feel better than the other person does.
By the end of it, and I'm like, I don't know if this is right or what the move
that's
is.
real.
But
That's the goal.
like,
How she feels
that's
is,
beautiful.
I think, the definite goal.
Yeah, I mean, every experience
I had a lot
that
of
is a win is a
siblings.
win. It's amazing. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to go over number 5.
Yeah, number 5 is forgive mistakes fast. And I think this one can only be said when it's said after the first 4 that we just went over, because this one requires all the skills of the last 4. But forgive fast. If you guys want to start taking that one away with forgive, because I feel like forgiveness is something that we've all, maybe it was the first thing that I wish I would have known, but it kind of came as a byproduct of the last thing that I kind of learned of now that things are thrown into the field, now that there's stuff going on, how do I practically move through that? And I think that, of course, sit with yourself with it, but the energy of forgiveness is extremely healing. And for me, I do something pretty often where I'm just looking to shift. Like whenever I'm holding that lack of forgiveness, I'm holding that energy.
When someone in your community or friends, they wrong you, they say something, the first thing is like, what's their intention behind it? Was their intention to hurt you? If that's the case, then we have to have a different conversation, like being clear, radically transparent, like, hey, that was very not nice, and then reassessing from there. But if they were just in pain, they were reacting, right? They did something, someone said something to you in a certain way, whether they're aware of it or not, you holding on to that pain, that anger, that frustration for longer than the appropriate amount of time, whether it's a couple of minutes, hours, or days, right? Depending on what it was that it happened. You're not doing yourself any favors by holding on to that energy, because those emotions are counterproductive to the growth of your cells, the light that gets emitted from your body, and the overall health and vitality. So there's studies out there showing massive transformations in cell markers and biological markers of people actually practicing forgiveness, increasing serotonin and dopamine, activates a certain part of their brain that then creates coherence in the entire nervous system and body. Forgiveness is a superpower, and I guess from my perspective, holding on to things for too long of a time, it's like you're poisoning yourself every single day. So it's almost like, do yourself the favor and forgive that person, so that way, one, you guys can heal, but also to help yourself as well.
I can feel what people are probably thinking right now. It's like, yeah, I know I want to forgive because I know that helps myself to not hold it in my body, but you know, Susan completely lashed out at me last week,
She was a jerk.
or 3 months ago, and every time I see Susan, I'm thinking about that. Like I can't forgive her because maybe I don't want it to happen again, or I feel wronged by it. So I think that's a real thing that we need to address right now, is that feeling of just like, injustice maybe of things and what to do about those situations, yes, I believe that we need to talk about it. But I think another part for me that's helped me is to just be more present and in the moment. If I am going to go see Susan and have coffee with Susan, I really just want to be in the here and the now and think about where we are going together. And that's why that communication, that radical transparency of discussing
literally.
what happened, what was going on with Susan, why did it happen, but also knowing that there's something in it for me as far as growth and both of us together, but also like where are we going?
And if you don't fully heal that too, like if you don't have the communication, you keep thinking about that, like attracts like, and your perception is going to see Susan every single time doing the same thing, and you're almost creating that in your field as well. So that's why it's so important to really address it from that
And
place.
I think too, like we said, these other 4 really main qualities, like I think the main thing for people, they'll come in and they're like, this person did this thing to me 5 years ago. And I'm like, they're not doing it right now, but you still feel and your nervous system's interpreting as if it's happening right now. And I think the key to forgiveness is one, right as it happens, of course, sit with yourself. How do I actually feel about this? And that's the authenticity piece, excuse me. That's the authenticity piece.
You're being very authentic. We're not cutting this.
But to say it when it happens, because it becomes this clouded thing that becomes extremely hard to even pinpoint what it was, where if somebody says something to me, I'm like, I don't appreciate how you just shared that with me. And that made me feel this way, where it kind of diffuses the whole thing. So I think when stuff goes on, I said curiosity before, but just to be curious about it, like, did you mean to say that to me? Because it kind of felt like this. And to just call the conversation out as it is, because if it drags on, there are parts of your brain that are seek and find mechanisms, and they are going to start doing what they do best and making those situations appear everywhere in your life as almost a pattern until you're ready to look at whatever this is.
And again, these tools, these seem like tools for just general in life, but we're talking about community. Why are these things important? Because the people you hang around, you want to have synchronicities, you want to have synergy with those people. So having these uncomfortable conversations, holding each other accountable, communicating constantly and clearly and being transparent, like by doing that, you heal not only relationships, but yourself, which then allows you, because why are we doing this? Why do we have community? To grow ourselves and our lives to make a bigger impact.
Yes, exactly. So we have some homework for you guys to take some moments to really take inventory of your own community and really think about what would be the ideal community for me? Like what would be thriving for me and my community? What does that look like? What kind of qualities would those people embody? And is that what I have now? And if I do, amazing. Now I can use those 5 tools to really enrich and deepen and cultivate more of that connection in those relationships. And if I don't, I'm gonna trust that more people are gonna come into my field and into my life, that we can synergize together and really practice those 5 tools together.
Beautiful.
I love that, yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us. If you found value in this, please like, share, and comment, and we will see you next time.